Kristen Butler, welcome to the Power of Books podcast. I'm happy to have you on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Timo.
We're going to talk about your new book, The Comfort Zone, which will be released pretty soon, beginning mid of April. But before we're going to dive into the book, I actually want to learn a little more about you and the business you built successfully over the last few years, and tell the audience a little bit, because you started the Instagram page and social media channel, Power of Positivity. When did you start that, and what made you start it in the first place?
Yeah, I started Power of Positivity 14 years ago, actually, in 2009. And it was a time when my life was beginning to kind of transform from rock bottom. Every area of my life before that was kind of falling apart. And I knew that positive thinking was important before that, but I never truly grasped the power of it until it pulled me out of rock bottom. And so I started the movement as a Facebook page first, and then I created a website for it. But when I first started it, I just wanted to tell anyone and everyone about the power of living a positive lifestyle.
That's really great. And I guess that's still your mission, right? That's still the main cause of it, right?
Yeah. Our mission is to plant, nurture, and grow positive energy into the hearts and minds of really anyone on the planet. We just want to uplift the planet and spread the message of the power of positivity.
That's such a great mission. I love that. And you're reaching a ton of people. I think you have it in your bio. It's like 50 plus million people, right? It's crazy.
Yes, we have Power of Positivity is 40 million, and then we have a sister page that is Positive Energy Plus, and then we have a few sister pages, Quote Remedy, Faith Remedy. So it just kind of all to support the same mission.
I love that. Well, to transition to the book, as I said, the book is called The Comfort Zone, and I thought it was really interesting because you also talk about it in the beginning of the book, that the comfort zone in the personal development space is something you hear a lot of people talk about, and most of them are like, you have to step outside of your comfort zone. But you look at it from a totally new perspective, which I found really, really interesting. So what's your perspective on a comfort zone, or what does the comfort zone actually mean to you?
Yeah, the comfort zone to me is not a place where you sit idly by or don't take action. It's not where you're just okay with where you are. To me, that's complacency. That's not comfortable. In the book, the comfort zone that I'm talking about is defined by safety, joy, confidence, creativity, happiness, success. It's not a static place like most people think. And if you allow it, you can constantly expand your comfort zone and grow. And it's always becoming more. In your comfort zone, you gain access to who you truly are, and you can stay in your power and then create from that place. So you're able to pursue your passions and find solutions to your problems with ease and in a smarter way to kind of optimize your ability to grow and learn new skills.
So when other people say, you need to step outside of this comfort zone in order to grow, how does that translate to your model with the 3 different zones? Because you're still operating in your comfort zone, I'd say. Probably you can put it better or explain it better, but when do you go into the survival zone, and what's the complacency zone or the complacent zone, and how do these differentiate themselves?
Yeah, so in the book, I kind of break it down into the 3 zones of living, and I've lived in all 3 of them. First, I talk about the complacent zone, and The complacent zone is where we're confusing the current comfort zone theory. So the zone of inaction. And here people might say they're happy or content, and they just don't want to grow. But when you look deeper, when you look under the hood, you find that their inaction is really held back by fears, insecurities, doubts, and they're actually not happy with where they are. They're not comfortable. And usually you get to this complacent zone after you've been in the survival zone for a long time. And the survival zone is really the zone of overaction. You might be an overachiever, or you might pursue goals with a lack mindset. And this is kind of where most of our population lives today, is in the survival zone. We're constantly comparing ourselves on social media. Our actions are driven by fear and worry and stress and doubt that we might lose what we have. And you might win in this zone and succeed at some things, but it comes at the cost of your well-being. And when you are in this zone, when you're creating results, it just needs more and more action to sustain it. So then we have the comfort zone. And as I said, that's where you want to be. That's the zone of action, but it's inspired action. And it's coming from a place of safety and confidence and ease and flow. Here you might set healthy boundaries for yourself and truly be in your authenticity, right? And you would prioritize positive emotions in your comfort zone. So I really want the comfort zone to be a positive thing, because comfort is a positive thing. We work so hard to someday be comfortable, but really we want to be comfortable along the journey and enjoy our life while we're here, not just chase comfort and work for comfort, right?
Yeah, I totally get that. And what I found really refreshing, and I feel like more and more authors and people are talking about this, is kind of going against hustle culture, which was the thing for the last few years and still is in many places. But now you see more and more people actually realizing that this is not a way to really live happy and, enjoy life, because you can also achieve great things without having to like hustle 24/7 or whatever, like sacrifice all those things for a business or physical goals or whatever. And that's why I found it really interesting, your approach, because all of that would go into the survival zone, where it's all just stress and, you're basically hurting your physical and mental self. So I really love that. I don't know if you're comfortable with it or if you've shared your story in the past before, but what did living in the survival zone look like for you? Because you said when you started the page, you were kind of past hitting rock bottom, where you were in the survival zone. So what did that look like for you?
Yeah, the survival zone was really kind of my teens and my 20s, where I had these big goals and visions inside, and I was so passionate, but I never had work-life balance. So it was always waking up and going to bed with my visions, but I wasn't taking time for self-care. I wasn't surrounding myself with the right people. I wasn't creating healthy boundaries. I wasn't taking the time to do the inner work and healing. So things would happen and I would just be like, and kind of drown myself in my work and learning. And so today, and even when I created the Power of Positivity, I balanced work and life and family and healthy boundaries and time for self-care. So when I was working, even if it was long hours, I loved what I was doing. I was happy, and I made sure that I took downtime, whether that was a full day that week or, a long bath at night or taking a walk in nature. So it's really, like you said, that work-life balance. It's just so important. And sometimes our goals are so big that we got lost in chasing them.
Yeah, that's right. So in the beginning of the book, before you go into the process of the 3-step process that you then cover, one of the things you cover first are limiting beliefs, which I found really interesting because it's a big thing. And what role do they play in people's lives or in your process in the book in general? Because I guess it all starts with that, what we think about ourselves and how we perceive ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Limiting beliefs hold us back. They are the lives that we're telling ourselves or that we're believing from other people. So one of the biggest transformations for me was releasing these limiting beliefs, these labels that people were putting on me through the years that I was allowing them and I wasn't taking them off and claiming who I really was. So in the book, we talk about replacing these limiting beliefs with more positive ones. And more specifically, in the comfort zone, I kind of dive into the limiting beliefs about comfort, about achieving with ease, about growth and success. And so we kind of examine what our beliefs are around it first, so then we can transform them. And I feel like it's really important to release the no pain, no gain mentality if we want to thrive.
Right. Yeah. And what does that process of changing the limiting beliefs look like? Or what can people do, if they know that they have certain beliefs about themselves or about life in general? Like, what can they do to overcome them or fix them?
Yeah, I think it's first important to acknowledge that we have them, because sometimes we don't take the time to really think about our beliefs. At least I didn't early on. And when I took the time to really go into solitude and process and journal some of these beliefs, I was like, wow, this is how I feel and think about my life and success and achievement. And so once I discovered them, then I could accept them. And accepting them is the way you move past them, because you're like, okay, this is what's gotten me to this point, and I'm going to accept this. But then you can transform it after that point, and you can replace that belief with whatever you want. So that's the empowering part. Once you acknowledge it and replace it, then you just get in the practice of that new thought. And it can take time, because you've believed something for so long, it's not going to just magically disappear. But with practice, you can reprogram the thoughts that you had that you didn't want, right?
Yeah. And I think affirmations kind of come into play with this, and there are, really like separate opinions about it. There are many people who are like really in favor or think that affirmations can really help, and there are other people who say, well, affirmations can just be empty words if you don't kind of back it up with action or with results, or doing what you say that you want to do. So what's your take on affirmations? Do you think they can be helpful, or do you are you also kind of skeptical about them?
Yeah, affirmations have transformed my life completely. So I'm a firm believer in them, because we're casting out affirmations all the time in how we feel about ourselves in the world. So if you don't believe in them, then you might be in denial because you're always thinking. And so it's really about kind of capturing the thoughts that you don't want and looking at them and then changing them. And if you feel like it's too big of a leap, what I found worked well for me was bridging them. So, for example, if there's a certain, if you want to get out of bankruptcy and you don't want to necessarily say, I'm a millionaire if you're in bankruptcy, that's such a huge leap. And so if you bridge that and find an affirmation that does feel good, like I pay all my bills on time each month, or I have X amount of money saved in my bank account, whatever that is for you, because everyone's different, but bridging it with something, or I am in the process of working on my financial goals. Even if you're just talking about the process, whatever feels good, that's the best way to make affirmations work for you. And I think that might be why some people struggle with affirmations.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's also, you can't just tell yourself something that you don't really believe. I think you have to really believe the affirmation too, right? Because as you said, when you're bankrupt and you're telling yourself, I'm a millionaire, you'll probably be like, well, no, I'm not, because I'm bankrupt. But if you say, I pay my bills on time, that's something that you can actually believe in, and therefore, it can unfold its power. So yeah, really interesting that it helped you so much. Do you want to share, like, what's one of your favorite affirmations that you've used in the past or that you still use?
Everything is always working out for me. I think that's one. And
That's
I'm
great.
always divinely supported, because I used to really fear the future. And now I can kind of settle into that, knowing that no matter what happens, even through challenges, I'm supported.
That's a great one. I love the first one. Everything is always working out for me. I love that. So one thing I asked myself when I read the book that I'm still not quite sure about with the zones, that I just think I haven't kind of really understood the concept yet, is I'm currently training for a marathon. And I was like, well, training isn't really comfortable, so I was wondering, am I in my comfort zone if I train for that? Or am I, like, how does that apply to your situation like that, where I am physically uncomfortable by training, but is it still the comfort zone I'm in if it's something that I enjoy doing,
Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely be in your comfort zone and do hard things. The important part, I think, is number one, loving what you're doing. If it's something that you want to do, then you're doing it. That number one is the most important. And then I also think number two is knowing your why. So are you running towards something or are you running from something? So that's important. And then the process of how you are building up to running a marathon. So that can either keep you in your comfort zone or keep you out. And I talk about this fully in the book, and maybe you can reference the acclamation section. So the way that we grow and level up, I feel, is through acclamation. And it's the same way we expand our comfort zone instead of stepping out. And in the book, I talk about it. It's a 3-phase growth process. So the first phase is it might be unfamiliar and uncomfortable. So when you first started running, you had to get familiar with it and you had to start feeling comfortable with it. This phase, you kind of want to spend a short amount of time in. This is when you are running every day or practicing what you want to do. You get to the second phase, and that is familiar but still uncomfortable. And again, you spend a short amount of time here, but you're getting to know how you're running, like in an example of running, how long your body can endure before you stop, how many miles per week you're running. And over time, you want to get to that third phase where running is familiar and it's comfortable. Your body feels like, oh, I need to run. Like, I've been running so much that I need this. Like, this is like my self-care. This is like how I get my main form of exercise, or whatever it is to you. But I feel like in the topic of running, you could also stay in your comfort zone by running with friends or having a mentor. You might even use a running app. Or build your mileage up each week. You're not going to say, I think I'm going to run a marathon and then run 26 miles that first week. Like, that's totally out of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
But if you say, like, I'm going to do, I don't know how much you run, but I'm going to do 3 miles this week. And then you build that up until the day of the event. That is how you do hard things in your comfort zone. And that's also how we naturally grow, and how life naturally grows. Nature naturally grows in this kind of way. So I feel like you are acclimating your mind and body to running 26 miles, right?
That makes a whole lot of sense, because that's also basically how every, training plan for a marathon is set up. None of the training plan says, just start training 3 weeks ahead and then just go all out or something like that. As you said, it builds up and you kind of get acclimated to it, and then you push yourself further every week. And the interesting thing about marathon running is even that something that might be a little counterintuitive, but if you're not familiar with it, it might be surprising that the week before you actually take almost an entire week to rest, to reset your body from the training, so that on the day of the race, you're basically well rested and can bring your best. So that's also something that, might be counterintuitive for people who are always looking to, push themselves and constantly push harder and further and faster. But in order to perform well, you also have to give yourself that rest and that break to then kind of, get all the energy that you need for the race. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're running in your comfort zone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this time I started a little late with preparation, so I'm a little bit in the survival zone, but usually I would say, from your explanation, I'm definitely in my comfort zone when preparing for the race.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, have friends help you or a mentor, if you feel like you've kind of stepped out, just employ more support. That's what I do anytime I'm like, oh, I think I'm pushing it. I need to get some support around this so that I can keep my balance.
I think that's also something that's so important because like in this hustle culture, whatever you want to call it, there's also often the narrative of, you're by yourself, you have to fight for yourself and, it's lonely at the top and stuff like that. But is it really like, it's still worth it, or you should still get help or support when you need it? There's nothing wrong with asking other people to support you or mentor you or guide you or train with you or whatever it is. So I think that's also an important point to highlight.
Yes, absolutely. In the book, I call that scaffolding, when we hire mentors or have a friend help us, or we might even watch YouTube videos on it. We educate ourselves to kind of acclimate and expand our comfort zone. And we all kind of do this naturally, but sometimes we forget that these are the important things that can really let us achieve with more balance.
Nice. So I want to talk a little bit about the 3-step process, the creating with comfort process that is the main part of your book. And maybe you can give a short introduction, like what the steps are and how they work for the audience so they can follow along when we dive into the steps.
Yeah. So the Create with Comfort process is how we stay in our comfort zone and expand it instead of stepping out. So step 1 is defining our comfort zone, like where we are going. And I created this process because this is really how I transformed my life and expanded power positivity. So first I had to define who I was and where I wanted to go. What were my skill sets? And it's kind of like with GPS, when we put our destination in, we have to make sure that we have the correct starting point, right? If we put a random address in, then we're going to get completely lost. And I know that sounds simple, but some people live like that. They don't actually know where there's a starting point is, and they just kind of decide where they're going. So first we really define that starting point. And then the second step is develop. We need to develop where we're going and kind of bridge it and how we're going to get there. That's how we expand our comfort zone. So I talk about this journey in the book. Like I guess I'm there with you through this process. This seems kind of confusing, but when you're developing it, it seems like a lot of inner work, but I'm kind of there through every step of the way to help you stay in your comfort zone and develop that plan, that expanded self in your comfort zone. So once we know where we're going, then we can direct that. And that is like the ultimate place you want to be, where you're constantly growing, you're in the flow, you love your life. Like that's the ultimate place of expansion in your comfort zone. And in the book, I talk about, tools that can help you, mindset shifts. We have journaling exercises, and it's really exciting because once you do that step 1 and 2, you're just kind of like in step 3 direct on autopilot, because you're constantly growing and evolving into whoever you want to be.
Yeah, I really love how well structured the process is, in a way where you lay the foundation in the first steps, and then, as you said, it's kind of really easy to follow along. Because one thing that I also love about your book is all the exercises after each chapter, the practical things and tools that people can use and test and do, and you give them instructions on visualization exercises or journaling prompts and stuff like that. And I love books like that, because then you're not just kind of left in the open, like figure out what to do yourself now, but you actually know, what steps to take. So I love that. The exercises were definitely really helpful.
Oh, thank you so much. It took years to kind of develop that. I had to kind
imagine.
of organize the process, right? Because it's like, how do I organize and teach something like this so that other people can replicate what I did? So again, even then I had to have writers on my team like kind of review it and edit it, like, okay, how can we make this as simple as possible? And the journaling exercises are just there for you to dive deeper, because we're all different and all of our journeys are going to be completely different, but the process is kind of still the same. So I'm so glad that you like that.
Well, it's interesting that you said you worked on the process for years. I want to get a little bit into the writing of the book too, because did you work on the process like first, unrelated to the book, and then the book kind of came out of it? Or were you already working on the book for all these years?
So I kind of started living it right after rock bottom. I prioritized comfort, and because I was always stepping out of my comfort zone before that, and pushing and forcing and hustling. So I started living it. And at first I was very shameful of it, because society tells you to step out of your comfort zone. But at that point, I needed relief from all the weight I was carrying all those years. So really, first I started living it. But then as I started seeing how successful it was, I was just astonished. So I started writing down some of the things I was doing, like prioritizing safety and listening to my intuition, and using acclamation to grow. And so as I started writing these things down and writing my ideas, it was only the last 2 to 3 years that I really started organizing it in a way that I could teach it, because I just was really kind of tired of hearing, step out of your comfort zone all the time. And it's the only way to achieve your dreams. And success is only achieved outside of your comfort zone. And so I thought to myself, I need to get this book into the world, because too many people are living with burnout and struggle. And while positive thinking is really helpful, I wanted to give them the exact tools that I used. It was really a culmination of positive thinking, but it was beyond that. It was taking it a step further.
Right. I love that. So the actual writing of the book, how long did you work on that?
7 years. Actually, I remember I attended a writer's workshop. Maybe it was actually 8 or 9 by now, maybe 8. And it was through Hay House, and Wayne Dyer led it with Reed Tracy. And it was just amazing. And he kind of talked through the process. And that's when I realized, I've got to make this into a book. Like, this is really powerful and it's unique, because he was talking about automatic writing and making sure that your book topic is very unique to you and your journey. But 7, 8, 9 years ago, I was still a bit shameful about sharing this with people, because I thought everyone's going to think I'm crazy, But as the years went on, I grew more and more confident. And so the last 2-3 years is when I really started getting serious about sharing it. And then working with Hay House, actually, they are the ones who published it for me. So it's really a full circle thing. It's kind of cool.
That's really cool, yeah, because back then you probably didn't know that you would work with them now. So that's really interesting.
I didn't. I dreamed of it. I dreamed of it for sure. Like, that would be really cool, but I didn't think it would actually happen. So it was a very cool surprise.
And you mentioned that you kind of felt this, now it's famous or known as imposter syndrome. And I think, like, at some point everybody of us can relate to that or feels that way. And I'm curious, like, did you have anything in particular that helped you overcome that feeling of, who am I to teach other people how to live better or something like that? Like, what was the thing for you that made the difference?
I was so passionate about self-help, and I thought, like, how is this going to add value to the world? Because so many people teach this, but, especially positive thinking, even though it was so important to me. But with the comfort zone, I didn't really have any imposter syndrome with that, because it was like, no one's really teaching this, and I'm kind of coming out with a completely new paradigm and a new idea. And so, I was a little apprehensive about it at first, but then the more and more I saw our community suffering, from so many negative emotions and just constant repeated cycles. And that was when I was like, this isn't about me. This is about them. I need to help people and share with them exactly what I did.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think once you realize that it's not about yourself, you stop worrying like what are other people gonna think, because it's not about what people think of me, it's about how can I help other people, how can I change other people's lives. And if you focus on that and do that with your book, then why would you worry about imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I love that.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like you just have to be confident in what you're doing, and knowing that you have an angle or an eye that no one else has, or perspective that no one else has. And if you keep that in mind, I think it kind of quells those feelings.
Mm. So to get back to the create with comfort process, I want to talk a little bit about some things from the second step, develop. And one concept that I really liked is the expanded self that you introduced. So what is that, and what role does it play in life for people?
Oh, I'm so glad that you love the expanded self. So the expanded self is really kind of taking time to visualize where you want to see yourself in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? Because we are in the present moment, but the power is where we want to go. And if we don't take time to think about that, we might just kind of be the same person and find little changes through the years, but not these big changes that we're looking for. So it's important first to kind of take time to daydream and visualize what that person looks like. What do they wear? Where do they live? What do they do? Who are they with? And I feel like daydreaming is not just for children. We have access to this too, and we can use it to our advantage. So not only does it feel good in the moment, if you allow for it to feel good in the moment, but it can project you to where you want to go. So that's what I did for myself at rock bottom. It's the constant layers of growth, kind of like a tree. A tree each year grows girthier and girthier. And I feel like that's what I've done, expanding my comfort zone, and what other people can do as well. So the expanded self is each of those rings. So when you decide where you want to go, you journal about that, and you think about the fine details, like what you're wearing, what colors you're wearing, where you're at. And when you do that, you can then connect the habits of who you are now to where you want to go, and what kind of habits you need to have. And so it's a very personal journey, because we all have different goals. But when you can take this time for this process, it can break it down in such a simple way so that day to day what you need to do, how you should eat, what kind of job you should have, how much should you exercise, or where do you want to live? Like, there's just so much to it. I think I'm going in too much detail maybe, but it's a very fun process. It's one of my favorite things in the book. And it's exactly how you can get to where you want to go.
You're definitely not going too much into detail. I'm loving this topic, so we can talk a little bit more about it, because what I thought when I read it is that probably, or for me, from my perspective, the most powerful thing about it is actually when you connect certain attributes to it or certain personality traits. And then when you switch to that identity of your expanded self, that you show up different in the present moment. That's what I think is really, really powerful, because you can change the way you show up at work or in your relationships or whatever by just putting yourself into that expanded self. And you share a really, really interesting story about Marilyn Monroe, who, I think the story was she was walking in New York and nobody, knew who she was. And then she asked somebody who she was with if she should step into her expanded self, basically. And then when she did that, suddenly everybody recognized her and everybody knew who she was. And that's so powerful, because, the first moment nobody knows who she is, so nobody recognizes her. But then once she changes that attitude or steps into that different identity, some might call it alter ego, that's when things change. So you also shared that for you, your social media handle, Positive Kristen, was kind of your expanded self. And I'm interested, like, what were the attributes or things that were different for that expanded self than who you thought you were at the moment or at the time when you created it?
Firstly, I just want to say you're a great storyteller. That was lovely. I was excited listening to you. I was like, yes, he really read that. And that's exactly what happened. And it's amazing that we can show up differently just because of the headspace of like where we are, that our whole physiological being can just kind of change in that moment just by the way we perceive ourselves, right? So yes, with Positive Kristen, I feel like I'm embodying her more and more every day. It's like she helps people, she uplifts the planet, she shares herself authentically without worrying about judgment. I used to worry about, well, what are people going to think about some of these things? So I don't do that anymore. And I openly share my journey and even some of the very most vulnerable things. I'm genuinely happy and grateful every single day for even challenges, because I know that it's just going to make me stronger and I'm going to learn something. So it's just so much about Positive Kristen and having that handle. It doesn't mean that I'm always positive, but even through the challenges, I find that positive perspective and focus on that. I don't ignore feelings. I work through them. And I feel like that's the best way to heal. And it's not toxic positivity when we acknowledge and then find the solution and move through that. So there's just so many ways that I embody her. But I feel like I'm definitely doing that even with this book launch. It's kind of cool. So thank you for that question.
Do you have a trigger that you use to get into that expanded self, or do you have like a habit or routine that kind of gets you into that state, or do you try to be in it like the entire time, like all the time, or how does that look for you?
I feel like in the morning when I wake up with gratitude, as simple as it is that powerful to switch yourself into like a forward motion identity, because even as really, like I said, as simple as it is, it's just so powerful. And then you carry that throughout the day in the way you interact with people and the way that you perceive things. So I think that it's just continual practice of feeling grateful in all the moments, no matter what, or looking for a solution that has helped me to do that, because of just kind of embodying positive lifestyle principles.
Okay, that makes sense. And you kind of build on top of that with when you talked about vision boards, because that's also, it's less about yourself or the attributes, personality traits you have, but more about, what do you want your life to look like, the outside life, like what do you want to do, have, be, and like, one, you're a big advocate of it, you love it, you said you've had many vision boards, and second is that you have kind of a different approach to them again as the common vision board that people might know. So how is it different to conventional vision boards, the comfort zone vision board, how you call it?
Yes, the comfort zone vision board. That's a great question. So when I first started making vision boards, the issue that I kind of had, it wasn't a huge issue, but I found that sometimes bridging from where I was to where I wanted to be was difficult. If I, for example, even like losing weight and getting fit, putting a fit person on my vision board wasn't as helpful as if I put the feelings of running or the aspects of the body that I wanted to have. And so when I started creating these bridges, I realized that it was important for me to also acknowledge where I was and what I've achieved so far and where I am going. So much like the comfort zone diagram that I have in the book, our vision board, there's these 3 rings. So we make one big ring and then 2 inner rings for the vision board. And in the very innermost ring, we want to put what we've already achieved, things that we're very proud of. Because there's going to be days when you don't feel like you've really made much of a change. But when you look in there and see that, it just keeps that confidence that you need to keep moving forward. So that's the first ring of the comfort zone vision board. The second ring is the things that we feel like we're almost ready to achieve, that it doesn't feel like there's going to be a lot of effort to get there, or maybe we've already put a lot of time into it, but we're still not there yet. So we put that in the second ring because it's coming soon with continual practice or effort. And then the third ring is really any kind of bold dream that you want and you don't have, but would feel so good and feel like it would be a part of you. We're kind of bringing that into our current comfort zone. And that can be anything that you want, but you want to put that at the third ring because you're not there yet, but you can see the bridge from the 3 rings as you go, and how you can kind of bridge that and achieve that. And it just feels easier, in my opinion, than just kind of slapping a bunch of things on cardboard and kind of calling it a day. That can be very effective, but not everyone has the confidence to be able to just know that it's going to happen by looking at it every day. And I think bridging it is just so important in so many ways.
Yeah, I think it makes total sense. First of all, what I love is the aspect of putting things up there that you already achieved, you're already proud of, which kind of you start from a feeling of, I can do this, I've done things in the past, and then, it's like medium level, kind of intermediate, things that you're pretty certain you will achieve in the near future, and then like that builds the mental next step to the ultimate vision, which I really like. How often do you update your vision board regularly, or what does that look like for you?
I used to do it yearly, and it just depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll do it quarterly. Oftentimes it just depends on how much I'm achieving and how much I'm prioritizing something. Right now with this book launch, I definitely need to revisit a new one after, because I feel like I'm ticking off a lot of the things that were important for me to begin doing, even like this podcast. This is me expanding my comfort zone, doing more podcasts and media for this book launch. So I feel like I never really thought about how often. So that's a really good question, but I think it's important for you to just continue to revisit it. And then when you feel really confident and you've achieved it, get that into that inner circle and start expanding more. I think growth is just a very personal thing. Some people like to grow slower, and some love quantum leaps, and all of that can be in your comfort zone.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. And I wanna ask, you said with the book launch, you've ticked off quite a few things. What were some of those things? Was writing a book or publishing the book on the vision board too?
Yeah, I did publish a book, but it was through Amazon KDP, and it was self-published. So this would be my first book published by a publisher. So yes, that was definitely one. And also getting media like, which was a complete surprise. I got Success Magazine, Emerging Entrepreneur, and getting on the Forbes Business Council. There's, I guess, like getting bigger media. I had never really, I wanted it, but I never really saw myself having it until just the last year. It was like, okay, that would feel really good. Before that, it was kind of like, it's fine, it'll happen someday. But when you add it into the vision board, it's like, oh yeah. And then when you see it happen, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, right? So, yeah, I hope I answered your question on that one.
Yeah, you did. No, I love it. It's really interesting to get a glimpse into what your vision board looks like, and how you've accomplished some of the things that you have.
Yeah, I do put like things like that, but then I also do add feelings like being a great leader or a better mom, or, I put like words to describe, instead of putting what I want to be, sometimes I'll use words to describe what that person would feel or be doing, if that makes sense. Just like, if you want to lose weight, put that you want, a toned body, or, feeling athletic, or, I don't know. Just sometimes you want to just use words to kind of embody those feelings to get you to like a certain place.
Mm. Yeah, it probably doesn't have to always be the outcome that you put on the vision board. It could also be what do you feel like during the process, or what does the process look like? So things like that, in which circle do you put it? Like in the second one, or in the outer one, the big vision one?
I guess it really depends on how close you feel like it is. Sometimes I'll put them in my inner, but then most of the time the feelings are kind of in the second ring, I feel like. Because then the big goals are like the third ring. So yeah, that's cool. That's an interesting question. I didn't think about it like that. I got to think about these things.
Yeah, because I really want to create one of those comfort vision boards for myself, because I've had, I haven't really created a physical one yet. I've had in the past, printed out some images and put them on a wall, but never really like a board that really I felt like it was complete or something. Like not complete, but it showed most of the things that I strive for. And I've had digital ones, but I think having a physical one definitely has benefits, because you can look at it, you can stand in front of it and kind of check off or look at the things that you want to achieve. And I really like the approach from your process, so that's why I asked a few questions about that. So when I create that,
you can throw some words on there to start, and then add the images as you go, because I feel like that just gets the ball rolling. We're always waiting for that day when we're going to cut things out and paste them. But even just the words, and then taking time in the morning to kind of really sit with those feelings and with those goals is just as effective.
So to get to the last step of the process, which is the direct step, I want to, because you get into habits, you get into like, what do you do on a daily basis? And I'm curious, because you talk a lot about different things you do, but what do you think have been some of the most important habits for you over the last few years, or even right now?
I think meditation, taking time to kind of just sit without thoughts, because I can be a very detailed thinker. For me right now, meditation is important, as well as visualization. I have to think about that. I'm always taking time for self-care. So I'm trying to think about right now what I'm prioritizing. Yeah, that along with the book launch.
Yeah, I guess right now that takes
right
up
now,
a lot of your time.
It's kind of the busiest time for me, but I'm continually leaning on connection with my family, getting out into nature, meditating, visualizing, and keeping it right there for now.
No, I mean, that makes sense because I can imagine how busy a book launch must be. So, so it doesn't have to be, so
Definitely
much.
learning the balance of it, right?
Yeah, I can imagine. So when you do you have a favorite practice of meditation? Because, there are really a lot of different things that you can do. Like, do you do guided or just, sit for yourself? Or do you have some kind of meditation routine that you go through? Or what does that look like for you?
I used to do a lot of guided meditations, and I think with practice, you're able to kind of just get into the flow and quiet your mind quickly on your own. I love the sounds of nature now. Now I don't really want to listen to anything but the sounds of nature. But that's just been a long journey for me to get to that place. Originally, I was doing all kinds of guided meditations, and I still even now love, Bob Proctor has one, and he has a few actually, and they're really great, and they kind of talk about embodying that like expanded self or that person that you want to be. But then it also kind of has that hypnotic feel. It's really good. They're on YouTube if you want to kind of Google them and check them out. But if I do a guided one, it's usually that or just literally solitude. That's like the biggest recharge for me.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And because I've been meditating in the past, but never, where I was like, I meditated for a month at a time. It was usually just, shorter periods of time. And right now, I think the last time I meditated is probably a year ago. And I feel like it would be really valuable to pick up this habit again. So, yeah.
Yeah, if you focus on your breath, I feel like that's the most important part of it is like instead of getting in your head, focusing in your body and in your breath. And that kind of really amplifies it.
Yeah, right. I love to take walks and run in nature, and I kind of feel like that's also kind of a little like meditation because when I go for runs, I also make sure, not to put music or anything in my ears, to just be, in my head with my thoughts and listen to what's going on around me. So maybe that's like some level of meditation that I do.
It really is actually. And then as you get in there, your mind can't think anymore. It literally stops you, right? So you're just kind of focusing on your breath. So that's definitely the way that you're meditating right now. I love that.
That's cool. Yeah. So I have a question that stems from a content format that I do on Instagram, and because I'm asking this for the first time, and I'm not sure how hard this will be to answer, but I have this format where I kind of summarize books in one sentence. And obviously you can't cover the entire contents of the book in a sentence. Sometimes I just make it a little fun statement. For example, for Why We Sleep, I had, just sleep more or something like that. Because, basically that's the essence of the book for most people. So I don't know if you're able to kind of put it into one sentence, but if you had to describe the Comfort Zone book in one sentence, what would that be?
Yeah, so you want a short sentence, or it doesn't matter how long as it's a sentence?
It doesn't matter how long it is.
I feel like the comfort zone gives you permission to be comfortable and to lean into positive emotions, to achieve your biggest, boldest dreams in a way that feels easy and natural.
I think that was a great sentence. Not too long, not too short.
I don't know, was it a run-on? No, I'm kidding.
No, it was really good. So one last question I have for you, because I ask every guest, obviously, because the show is called The Power of Books. We talk about books, and the listeners and myself, we're curious, like, what are the books that have impacted you the most? The book that changed your life, inspired you in some way. Maybe you can name 2 or 3, however many you want.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like the most impactful books, since I was a child, for one, the Bible, that's just for me a given. And then as I got older, Think and Grow Rich, super valuable. And I love like books written a long time ago. It's just to me like so valuable in today's world. And I also love You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, because it really connects our emotions and what's going on in our body with our life. And And that's been a super valuable book to me.
Interesting. I've read Think and Grow Rich. I've heard of You Can Heal Your Life, but actually haven't read it yet. I'm curious how, because the Bible is a first time that someone mentions it, but not that it is bad or anything, but how would you say has it impacted you? Like, what was the biggest thing, maybe that you took from it, or how it impacted your thoughts or your actions or your life in general?
Yeah, I grew up from a teen mom, and so my grandma was always reading me Bible verses. And when I was a kid, I was kind of like, well, that's interesting, but I wanted to read more books. And through the years, I feel like I've connected things in self-help books with the Bible, or even things that have happened from my own experience. I'm like, wow, that really is like that, And so to me, the more I learn in the world, the more I realize that it is kind of ingrained, whatever your beliefs are, the things in the Bible kind of are ingrained in this life. And it does have things in there that can inspire us, can encourage us when we feel down. And so it just kind of was like a foundation when I was younger. And it's kind of like I'm revisiting it as I get older. And it's something that I'm even giving to my kids, Bible verses, because it's really all entangled with the self-help realm and life in general. So it's important to me.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from. I'm asking because I read parts of the Bible, in school and then in church in the past as a children, but in the last few years I haven't really read anything from the Bible, but I thought about, getting into that again. And because as you said, it relates a lot to self-help topics, generally there's a lot of wisdom in it. And I just wanted to hear from you, like, how it has impacted you. And, it kind of inspired me to probably also pick it up more often and then kind of look at different verses and stuff. Yeah, so I love that.
Yeah, the ones that have like the guide, I have one from Candace Cameron. It has like kind of footnotes and different kind of explanations around it, and that's really helpful for me to like truly get the message and what it's saying and apply it to my own life today. So like that's usually helpful than just the original version.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for today's conversation. I really enjoyed it. For the people who want to get your book, what's the best place to get it? Online somewhere, or like, do you sell it through Amazon probably?
Yeah, I have a website, thecomfortzonebook.com, and from there you can kind of, depending on where you live, you can click on it and see what bookstore is local or available for you. And then I also have bonuses in there, like I have a masterclass bonus, and some PDFs, and also the beginning of the book as a bonus when you pre-order. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so to the listeners, make sure to go to the website to get the bonuses and not just order the book somewhere, because you're missing out if you just do that. You're actually not missing out because the book is great, but you can get more if you go to the website and check out the bonuses.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Kristen. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you taking the time and answering the questions, and thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.